Hello, I'm Rebecca Flaherty and today we're going to be making this pattern in Procreate. This tutorial is an intermediate level one and I'm going to be using another template from my Arts and Crafts Wallpaper set. You can follow along and make this pattern freehand and without the texture overlays. If you're a regular here, then feel free to use the timestamps to skip to the beginning of the tutorial, and if you're new here, then welcome to the Pattern Maker's Toolkit. So this pattern uses a pinwheel kind of shape as the diamond framework, and we're going to be keeping the colour palette minimal for this classic monochrome design. Although this looks like a simple design with only a few flowers and just two colours, it's actually a little more complicated than it looks. We're going to be using an outlining technique on the stems and adding in lots of detailed line work. If you've never made a diamond repeat pattern in Procreate before, then this tutorial here will help you learn exactly how it works and covers the why as well as the how, which I won't be going into as much detail in this tutorial. So let's start by importing our canvas, and I know I repeat these every time, and that's why I say you can use the timestamps to skip to the beginning of the tutorial. The reason I repeat everything in each video is because not all of the people that view my videos are current subscribers or people that are already seen other videos, so I like to make every video have all of the info in it. So if you only watch one video, you get all of the info. So apologies that I repeat the same things in every lesson. If you want to use the timestamps, skip straight to the beginning of the tutorial. So we start by importing our canvas from the gallery screen, and the reason I import from the gallery screen is because dragging and dropping from the Files app in split screen view will flatten all the layers into one if you're importing PSD files. So get into the habit of importing your files into Procreate this way. It's a question I get asked quite a lot from people who've bought these canvases from my Etsy store, and they'll message me saying I've got no layers on my canvas, it's just one flat file. And it turns out every time they're dragging and dropping in split screen from the Files app into Procreate. So always import this way and it will keep all your layers intact. So we are working on number 4 curved pinwheel this week. So at the top here we've got our textures. We don't need to touch those except for turning those on and off if we want to. They won't show at the moment because it's blending down onto white, but if we change the background color to something else, you can see those lovely wallpaper textures there. Let's just change this back to white. And then we've got our layers here. So everything in black is what we'll be drawing, and that's going to go in this black motifs folder. The extra bits in pink will go in here, and then the blue will be made by repeating all of this around the edges. And then we've got our sketch folder, which is made up of this transparent, I don't even know what you call that shape there, a pinwheel shape. And that's on an empty layer and it's transparent. So if you want to follow along freehand, you could draw something like that, or just a classic diamond. And then this is the template layer, which has got all of the positioning on it. We're going to start working in our draw here first layer. So starting in the draw here first layer in the sketch folder, I'm going to grab from the brush set that comes with this one, and we're going to use the stamps again so we can trace over those and just get a really quick start with learning how these work. I'm going to use this shape here and just grab like a pink colour or something. And I'm going to stamp that flower shape into each of these black circles here. So we don't need to do the blue ones, those will be made by repeating these. And because we've got all the stem shapes marked out, I'm not going to trace over those in the sketch folder. If I was drawing a pattern completely freehand, obviously I would get all the positioning done, but because we've got this template, we don't need to do that this time. So we can put these into position around the edges now. So duplicate this layer, tap transform, making sure you've got snapping and magnetics on and distance and velocity all the way up to the top. We're going to drag this halfway down and halfway across and snap it into place there so you have those orange lines. And then you can see that this flower has been brought down into that space there. Then we duplicate this bottom one again, tap transform and snap it up into this corner. Duplicate the bottom one again and snap it into this corner, and one last time duplicate the bottom one and snap it into this corner down here. Then those 4 top layers you can pinch together, and I normally invert the colours on those so that I can see the difference between the ones I'm going to be drawing, these ones in pink, and then the ones will be made by duplicating and I don't need to draw them are these ones in green. So because we've got all of the leaves and stems in place, I'm not going to trace over those, so we're ready to move straight on to the pattern group now. So turn on your pattern group, add a layer in here to start working in, and I'm going to change the background color to this yellow color, and we could turn the textures on as well because it's nice to have those on while we're working so we can get an idea of how the colors are going to look in their final state. So first of all, I'm going to draw in the flowers. So let's grab this cream color and the drawing brush, and I've got the size at 3% for drawing these. I'm going to draw in the middle circle, and fill it, and then I'm going to draw in these petals. I'm going to do the lines here with this brush at this thickness as well. And then these leaves that go behind, which I guess are the sepals really, they're not leaves. Then I'm going to change my brush to the thinner one, and I'm going to add some detail on these. So I'm going to kind of like do like a stitch detail around these, and you can either have it quite uniform like that, or you could have it a bit more kind of haphazard and random like that. You decide which of those you prefer. And I'm also going to draw some like little bits of line hatching on these sepals there like that. The more parallel you keep them to the petal edge, the nicer they're going to look, but absolutely don't stress about it if it's your first go. So now you can repeat this for the other two flowers as well. Then we're going to add a layer above these, and we're going to work in this yellow colour, the same as the background, and this is going to kind of like work like an eraser now over the top. So we're going to draw an inner circle that's kind of almost parallel to that one which we drew. And then if I turn down the opacity on this layer, you can see the dots underneath. You can make whatever marks you like on this. So I'm on the yellow layer here. You could literally just, oops, a bit too heavy-handed there. You could just draw over these dots as they are. What I'm going to do, I think, is freehand some bigger yellow dots and then put some extra marks on top of those. So I'll just turn the opacity back up on this one because I'm not going to use those dots as a guide for this one. This is where you can make it your own by choosing your own mark making to go in the middle of these flowers. Then I'm going to add a layer above, go back to the cream colour, and I'll make the brush a bit smaller, and I'm going to just draw some like little curved shapes on the middle of these. When you have all three flowers finished, we can start working on the stems. Now, normally we draw in the stems with a line over the top of the template there. What I'm going to do with these, instead of drawing over like that, I'm actually going to draw two lines either side of it. So I'm kind of drawing the outline of a stem. So that's how I'm going to do the stems and leaves in this design. And I want to draw on a separate layer to what we've already drawn here, even though it's the same colour, because if you go kind of like a bit over the edges there, if we want to erase this and it's on a different layer, we can easily erase it back like that. So let's just undo that, because I don't know which layer I'm working on at the moment. At the moment I'm on this layer on the top, which I guess we could use, or you could just add a layer underneath and we'll work on this layer. So let's grab the drawing brush, which I have. We'll start drawing on the outside. And when you come down to here where the leaf meets there, you just come up and carry on your leaf shape. You can either just stick to the leaf shapes that's there, or you could come up with some different kind of leaf shapes in there. Just match that up at the bottom. And then we'll come down the other side here, taking it up into the leaf here. And then carry the stem down here and then up towards this flower. And then carry on down this way. So then we'll just go around, fill in all of these leaf shapes in for this part here. At the bottom here, just round the stem off and then carry back on up. And you should have something like that at the end. And then with the thinner brush again, I'm going to add some little line details like this to these stems as well. There we go. And the last thing I'm going to do is add some detailing to these. So I'm going to use this central stem here as a guide. So I'm going to draw from the top down to the bottom, just to the left of the line, and then I'm going to just put these little hatching lines that come almost to the edge but not quite. And then I'm going to draw another line down the other side, and then repeat that on this side, flicking out that way. There we go, and if I turn the sketch layer off, you can see how that's looking. So I'm going to repeat that on the other leaves now. So that's this middle section complete now. We can start working on this part that goes up there. This can be done on any of the layers where you've already got cream colour, so I'll stick on the layer that I'm on here. Just change my brush size, and I'm going to start here on this one. Try and stick closely to the lines for this initial one, because this is going to blend seamlessly with what we eventually come to draw up, where is it? Up here, on this part here. So this leaf here, we're going to draw that up there, and we're going to blend this in when we get up to that bit. I'll just draw up as far as here and then add the leaf shapes in. So in order to blend this one in, it would be helpful to have this already up there in place. So we can do that by putting a mark off each of the corners on this layer, duplicating, tap transform, and then snap it up here into this corner like we did in our sketch layer. And now we've got this line up there, and we can draw this leaf in and blend it in. Come back down to the bottom layer to do this, though you want to be drawing on this layer, not this one. Now I'm going to go to this layer here that already has this yellow on it, and I'm going to use this layer to draw some yellow line work and leaf veins on top of those leaves. When we get to this one here, where I've gone over the lines, you can use this pen just to add that little bit of separation back in there. And there was a few other spots where I did that as well. So we can do it in there and maybe there as well. So yeah, you can use this layer to add back in any of that definition, and you get that kind of cool overlapping look there. Could maybe even take that in just down there, look. And I didn't do this in the test ones for this, and I hadn't planned this next part, but I'm thinking I'm going to repeat this little stitch detail on this one as well. In the practices I did for this one, I just had this as a plain white thing, but I think I'm just going to add some of that little dotted line in there as well for this one. I actually probably end up making these patterns, the same pattern, at least 2, if not 3 times. The first time I make it as a practice, figuring out what the tutorial is going to be about, then making it in the actual tutorial, and then sometimes I do it a 3rd time as well to film it around the other way for making a short out of it as well. So by the time I get to the end of these patterns, I'm pretty sick of doing the same thing. So yeah, most of these tutorials, there's probably at least 3 versions of it on my hard drive. So that is all of this illustration done now, and we can work on the pink in the extra folder next. So turn off your texture layers, Swipe down with 3 fingers and copy all. Turn your extra group on, tap on the marker here, swipe down with 3 fingers and paste. So we want to bring these edges into the middle, so we duplicate, tap transform and snap one over to this side, making sure we've got the orange lines going down the edge of the canvas there. Then this bottom one, bring over this side, and there we go, we've got that in the middle now. I'm going to bring this up there so that we can have this line continuing and we can see exactly where we can go up to with this. So pinch those together, duplicate, tap transform, snap it halfway up and into this corner there, and then we've got that in place there as well. And I'm also going to bring this down here so we can see where we're going to merge it into there. So duplicate this bottom one again, tap transform, snap it halfway across, and then snap it into that corner there. And although these are blue on those layers, it's these 3 that we need to draw. So merge all of those 3, add a layer above, and we can just draw these in our cream colour. Then you can add a layer above and repeat this detailing on these as well. There we go, and that is all of our illustrating done, so now we're ready to build out the pattern tile. First of all, we're going to duplicate this extra group, bring it up out of our layers group. We can delete these 2 markers, and I'm going to tap flatten on that. And then I'll hide the extra group, hide this one that I've just put at the top there, turn off the sketch, and in the pattern group we need to turn this part at the top there off. Let's find where that was. So this one here, we can delete that, and then duplicate the pattern group, flatten it and bring that up to the top, and then we can turn off all of our separate layers underneath. Don't need those now to build out the tile, they're just there to go back to if we want to correct anything or do any edits, which is why I love making patterns in Procreate this way. Nothing gets flattened and lost. Everything is kept intact if you need to go back and edit it later, and it's perfect for then taking over to Photoshop and converting to smart objects, etc. And you've got a fully editable pattern tile. If you want to find out more about how I do that, I'll put a link for that in the video description. Let's build out the tile now. So this is in the right place, but this isn't. We need this to be on the edges. So tap on this layer and put a mark going off each of the corners, which I'm doing in the darker yellow so we can't see it. So let's duplicate this layer now, tap transform and snap it over to this side, and then the other one we'll bring over here, pinch those together, turn off the background colour so I can make sure I erase all of that, including the darker yellow. Turn the pattern group on and we can pinch those together, and this already has 2 marks in the corners from where we added them to bring this up there, so we don't need to add any extra marks unless you don't have those there, in which case put a mark on those corners at this point. Duplicate this layer, tap transform, and then we're going to snap it into each of the corners like we have been all the way through since our sketch layer. And then we can pinch the top 4 together, erase those marks in the middle there, and also erase them off the corners of the next tile down, and then we can pinch those together. We're nearly done. As with the other tiles where I've added dots to them, it's easier to do this once you're at this stage and you have everything in its final position. So I'm going to add a layer underneath here, and I'm going to use the dot brush to fill in this negative space here. Put the brush at 5% and I'm going to use that to fill in this negative space here with the scattered dot brush. So I'm just going to stick inside this pinwheel area, and then we'll repeat that around the edges. And this brush is set up to have some nice variation in the size and angle of the dot there. So you can quickly add dots to your negative space with it like this. But it's also not so crazy that it fills things up too fast. You can go like slow enough to get things in the right place. So now I have all of these dots on, I'm going to open up the pattern folder. I'm going to duplicate this layer and tuck a copy of it away in the pattern folder. And then this one up here, I'm going to add a mark to the corners and then duplicate it around the edges. Pinch the top 4 together, erase the bits in the middle and then the one underneath, erase those off the corners, and then we can pinch those top 4 together, and let's just zoom in and turn our textures on, and that is our finished wallpaper. Before you export a pattern tile, it's always good to check that it's repeating properly though, so let's do that now. Let's swipe down with 3 fingers and copy all, come right up to the top here and swipe down again with 3 fingers and paste. That's put a flattened copy of that up there for us. Come down to a layer underneath, add a layer and just fill it with a really contrasting colour. So that's filled with this pink colour. Then on this layer here, tap transform, and with snapping and magnetic still on, snap this up into the middle until that says 1800 pixels there. Then duplicate and drag this over to the side there. And then you can zoom in and show and hide this one, and you should have no gap down there, and all of your motifs should match up there. That's looking okay, so we can pinch those together. The vertical seams are fine. Let's test the horizontal seams now. So duplicate this, tap transform, snap that down there. And this is really just like proofing it when you upload to Spoonflower. You can see the edges and you can see if there's any faint lines there. So hopefully by doing this here, every time you upload to Spoonflower, you won't ever have any problems. You'll already have known about them and you can fix it if there was something wrong. That's all okay, so I can pinch that, get rid of this one, and that is our finished wallpaper. If you want to get your hands on this set of 6 floral arts and crafts canvases, you can find them in my Etsy store, and Pattern Makers Toolkit members get 10% off. Pattern Makers Toolkit is a bit like a Patreon group, except it's all free. I send out one and only one email per month with a freebie in there to help you on your pattern making journey, as well as early access links to some of my YouTube tutorials and full access to all the assets in the resource library. Plus, members get 10% off all the canvases and brushes in my Etsy store. New for 2025, the email also has a set of seasonal prompts each month for helping you plan, illustrate and upload in advance for the key shopping dates in your print-on-demand stores like Spoonflower. If you'd like to join, just click on the link up here or in the description. If you want to see more from me, you can find all of my more in-depth classes on Skillshare. And if you're not already a member there, you can get 1 month for free when you sign up with this link. And lastly, don't forget to subscribe here on YouTube for your weekly dose of pattern making fun. Have fun, stay creative, and I will see you soon.